right, guys. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Discipline Files. And this would be an episode about the three modes of traders. That's right. The three different modes of traders and what kind of mindset that it takes in order to shift into what it takes to be a professional. All right. Thinking in probabilities. This episode, if you're new here, all right, is brought to you by a guy named Mark Douglas. Okay. He wrote a book called Trading in the Zone and The Disciplined Trader. And these books and these audiobooks, his teachings over time have helped me shape me into the unique trader that I am. And so I thought it was only right to bring it to you guys to let you get it part of your journey as well. And hopefully it helps and for this to sink in, right? So take notes, get comfortable, give yourself grace, all right? I'm Coach UV. This is the Unique Trading Group where strategy meets mindset and discipline turns into income. And we're going to get right into it. So you guys prepare. I hope you enjoy, and I see you towards the end. All right, let's get into it.
In this section, we're going to cover the underlying nature of the mental skills that you're going to be learning. And then at the end of the section, I'm going to put these skills within the context of three developmental modes that you're going to eventually learn to trade in, which would be first the mechanical mode, then the subjective mode, and then the intuitive. Everybody kind of have a good idea where we're going today? Maybe a little bit better of an idea than when you kind of walked in here? Yeah? Okay? So anyway, what I want to do is let's just go through and take a little bit of an attitude survey here, kind of get an idea where you're at. There are no right or wrong answers here. It's just a matter of what you believe about the nature of trading. So if we just kind of making money as a trader is primarily a function of analysis. Who would agree with that? Everyone, kind of raise your hands. It's all right. Raise your hands. So you're telling me that only a few people would agree? Part of it? Okay. Okay. I often find myself thinking there must be a way to trade without having to take a loss. Come on, be honest. Come on. Oh, yeah, let's say I find myself thinking that there must be a way to trade without taking a loss, right? Okay. Okay. By the way, the first one of the things. This is a primary. One of the things we're going to talk about a lot of making money as a trader is primarily a function of analysis. That really isn't the case at all. What you're going to learn. In other words, trading is execution. Trading is execution. What you decide to do, of course, is analysis. And the problem is that it depends on what you're using your analysis for. If you're using your analysis to avoid the risk, then certainly making money is not a function of that, because you will virtually consistently lose. But we're going to talk about that more in a little bit, okay? Okay. I have trouble getting out of a losing trade. Anybody here still have trouble getting out of a losing trade? Okay, that's fine. You won't have that trouble after today. I'm really, my goal is that when you walk out of here, you will understand in no uncertain terms that there's absolutely no reason to hang on to what you will define in advance as a losing trade. Do you find yourself planning trades you never execute and executing trades you never planned? That's a pretty common thing that affects most traders. There's always a cost associated with finding out what the market may do next. It's good to think that. That means you're accepting the risk. That there's a certain amount of cost, meaning a certain amount of risk involved in finding out what the market may do next. If I were to thoroughly analyze my trading results, I would find that my average losing trade is much bigger than my average winning trade. Yeah, a few people in here that might still be falling in that category. It only takes one trader somewhere in the world to negate the positive outcome of any particular trade. Who agrees with that? Anybody? Raise your hand if you agree with that, please. Nobody raises their hand. Oh, this is big. I love it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for not agreeing with that, because you couldn't be further from the truth. You couldn't be more wrong. This is one of the things you're going to learn. It only takes one trader somewhere in the world to negate the positive outcome of your trade or your edge. That's all, just one. You're going to learn that today. I wouldn't put on a trade if I wasn't sure it was going to be a winner. Who agrees with that statement? Please raise your hand, please. Who agrees with that statement? Good. I'm saying good because what I'm saying is that, yes, there is a gap here that we're going to have to fill between your particular attitudes about trading now and where you're going to end up with, hopefully, by the end of the day. I would answer this question, absolutely not. I wouldn't put on this trade if I wasn't sure it was going to be a winner. I trade from the perspective of I don't know if any trade is going to be a winner. And I don't have to know. As a matter of fact, that is one of the principal concepts that you will have to adapt to become a consistently successful trader. And what the pros have adapted, and the reason why they can do what they do, is because they have learned, not just learned, but they believe, without a shred of doubt, that they do not have to know what's going to happen next to make money. And don't even think about it in those terms. They don't even think about it in those terms. It's not a matter of what's going to happen next. When you understand the nature of how technical analysis, how your technical formulas and your mathematical formulas interact with market behavior and what they can and can't do and what their inherent limitations are, you will also understand that I wouldn't put on a trade if I wasn't sure it was going to be a winner is absolutely one of the worst mistakes you can make to be a consistently successful trader. It is. In fact, it's probably the number one. Kind of perplexing at this moment? Yes? Good. Okay, I always define my risk before I enter a trade. Is everybody here in this room at the point where they always predefine their risk? Who doesn't? Raise your hand. Please raise your hand. I want to know where everyone's at. Come on. It's all right. Okay. Sometimes I find myself blaming the market for what went wrong. Well, let me ask you this. Does anybody feel betrayed by the market ever? Anybody ever feel betrayed by their signal, their technical signal, or whatever methodology that they use? We're going to talk about that in detail too. The more a trader learns about the nature of the markets, the easier it will be for him to execute his trades. Who thinks there's a correlation there, that the more I learn about the nature of markets and price movement, the easier it will be to execute your trades? Who thinks there's a positive correlation there? Okay, again, couldn't be further from the truth. There's a negative correlation there. The more you learn, the harder it's going to be to execute your trades. It depends on why you're learning it, of course, but we'll get into that. To be a successful technical trader, you have to determine what the market is going to do next. I already said that's not the case, so you'll know how to answer that one. But if I hadn't said it, how would you have answered it? Who would have said yes if I hadn't have already told you guys? A couple people? And you came to Houston? Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Okay, trading skills. Who are the professionals? We already talked about that. And why would it be beneficial to think like a professional trader? We already talked about that. What's the answer? Anybody can make money, okay? We kind of already established the fact that anybody can make money as a trader. Yeah, we're talking about consistency. What we want to do is we want to close that profit gap. We want to make sure that our bottom line results reflect the potential of our methodologies. Okay? And that's what the professional has learned how to do. The professional has learned how to close that profit gap. They have learned the appropriate skills to do that. They're people just like you and me, okay? They're no different. They really aren't. They've evolved into a different way of thinking about trading. That's the reason why they can do it. And you can do it too, with understanding and awareness. That is really primarily what this workshop is about anyway. Because when you think about it, if you've read stories of people who have aspired to greatness as a trader, you'll always find, with almost all of them, that there's this underlying thread, this underlying theme that virtually all of them have lost one or more of what they considered a fortune before they started becoming consistently successful. Why do you think that underlying thread or theme exists in their lives? What's that? Why do you think that commonality exists? Because at some point they lose so often and then come back from losing that, one, they gain the confidence that they can do it, and as a result the fear dissipates, and as soon as the fear is gone, they're trading from a carefree state of mind, and when you trade from that carefree state of mind, everything about your trading changes. Remember that the primary skill that we're talking about here is simply trading without fear. This is a trading skill. It is the primary skill that you will have to acquire to create consistency, to trade without fear. What does consistency look like? I've already went through on the grease board here and showed you a consistently rising equity curve with the drawdowns, the normal drawdowns being a reflection of what? Can anybody remember what I said about that? What that? Normal losses that reflect any trading methodology, right? Okay, what skills are necessary to experience a winning trade? Now, think about it. Now, I'm going to contrast, okay? I'm going to do a little bit of contrasting here. Just to show you one of the reasons why it can be so difficult to get even into a frame of mind where we start asking the appropriate questions about what do I need to really be consistently successful? Because what does it really take to experience a winning trade? What skills do you need? Anybody got any idea? What skills do you need to experience a winning trade? What? What's your name, sir? Maurice says a click of the mouse. Who's with Maurice on that? Come on, who's with Maurice on a click of the mouse? Got 1, 2, anybody else? 3, 4. He's absolutely right. That's all it takes. There are no other skills needed. No other skills needed other than the actual physical ability to put your finger on the mouse button and click in the buy or the sell, and you can find yourself in a winning trade. You can find yourself in a spectacularly winning trade, far beyond what you could ever imagine. And what skill did it take? What did it take? Just doing it. That's all. Just doing it at that moment. Do you need an edge? Do you even have to know what an edge is? Is it possible to just to walk up to your computer and the arrow happened to be on the buy button, you click and then find yourself in a winning trade? You didn't have an edge, did you? You just clicked it. What did it take? It took nothing. Do you need a plan? Need no plan. Do you need the discipline to execute the plan? No, you don't need that either, do you? Now, see, you're going to see the opposite of all this, of course, is what we're going to be talking about in terms of creating consistency. But go ahead.
What you're saying is a blind squirrel will eventually find a nut. Sorry. What you're saying is a blind squirrel will eventually find.
Did you say a squirrel? I'm sorry, squirrel. Okay, squirrel. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I can click a mouse. You know, the arrow hits the buy. I click. I get a great trade. That's good. It's all the things that lead up to me. That's the implementation. But what about all the things that lead up to that implementation?
Oh, I understand. I'm not negating that at all. I'm just saying that the reality is you don't need anything. That's all I'm saying, because I'm contrasting here. I'm just making a contrast between what you need to be consistent and what you need to win.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm doing, okay?
You just summed that up with what I was about to say. There's all the difference in the world between having the skills necessary to experience a winning trade as compared to having the skills necessary to consistently experience a winning trade.
Absolutely. That's all I'm talking about here. Because see, because what this does is the non-understanding this contrast creates what I call like a huge psychological gap. Because it's very easy for us to think that trading is easy. And if you believe that trading is easy, even if all your experience is starting to tell you that it's not, it doesn't mean that experience is dropping down to a level of realization where you change your behavior or change the way that you think about trading. If your first impression, if your first experience was that this couldn't be simpler. And then you spend, how many X number of years or half a lifetime finally coming to the realization that, you know what? Yeah, to win, like what do you need? Like I could be in a casino and plunk $100 bill down at a blackjack table and end up with a blackjack. What did I need? Nothing. I just happened to win. Now, if I want to be a professional blackjack player and make a consistent income from playing blackjack, well, that's a whole nother matter, isn't it? And we're talking about the same things here with trading. There would be a number of skills that I'd have to acquire to be able to make a consistent, reliable income as a blackjack player. And there are people who do it. Do you need a good reason to put the trade on to win? Do you need a good reason? No, not at all. What characteristics distinguish the pro from the typical trader? Well, they plan their trades. No. They execute their plan without error. We'll talk about trading errors in a minute. Big difference. Okay, they can move in and out of their trades with an ease and effortlessness that would boggle the mind of the typical trader.
Now I want to pause for a brief moment to speak on this. This is a very intricate part of a trader who does this, that's experienced, like a scalper or a day trader who has a defined risk approach, defined entry, defined exit, and he's trading with an edge and a trading plan. All right, most of the time these are advanced orders, like OCO orders. Just for example, where you take one click, right, one order, and it defines your premium, how much it took for the trade to put on, where to get out at, right, your targets, and where to protect yourself just in case the trade goes against you, okay? And this is the intricate part, so pay attention, guys, all right? Thanks for watching.
Okay, what do you need to achieve consistent results? Well, you're gonna need an edge. You're gonna be able to identify an edge. You're gonna have to have a trading methodology, are you not? Right? Okay? And you have to have a plan on how to utilize that edge. In other words, you're going to have to determine risk parameters. How much does it cost me to find out if this particular edge that my methodology provides me, how much is it going to cost me to find out that this edge is working on this particular trade or not? That's your risk parameter. Are you guys with me on this? Okay? Money management parameters. In other words, how much in other words, contract size or number of shares that you trade. All this has to be taken into consideration. You could have a standard amount, or you could have an amount that fluctuates based on other criteria that you use, to determine, the level of trade that it is. Like it could be like a 5-star trade or a 1-star trade. With a 5-star trade, you go in with a maximum position, or the 1-star trade, you go in with a minimum position. And profit objectives. You have to be able to set profit objectives. See, just having a methodology to get you into a trade is not enough. You have to be able to determine what the risk is on a consistent basis. You have to know what your money management parameters are, and you have to be able to determine where to take profits. None of these are easy things to do, are they? Trade execution. The ability to execute trades flawlessly so you can utilize your trading plan to its maximum potential. This is the big one right here. This is the area, because when you get right down to it, trading is about trading is execution. The act of trading is executing trades. And if you're going to execute trades, you're going to have to be able to do them without errors, because it doesn't make any sense to think that you will achieve a consistently rising equity curve if you're constantly making trading errors. Trading errors would be defined as mistakes. Mistakes that detract from your bottom line results. Now, the interesting thing about mistakes is that when you're trading from let's say the perspective of, it doesn't really take anything to win, then there really aren't any mistakes that you can make, because anything that you do could result in a winning trade for any reason. But when we're talking about making consistent money or an income that we can rely on, then everything changes about this. Everything changes. What I'm talking about here is I'm talking about these like 5 or 4 broad skill sets to be able to create consistent results, the kind of results that you can rely on as an income. You're going to have to learn an edge. You're going to have to acquire a trading methodology that gives you an edge. I'm defining an edge as that there's a higher probability of one thing happening over another. That's what an edge is. We're going to learn the nature of probabilities here in a moment. You're going to have to have a plan on how you utilize that edge, meaning what the risk is, position size, and profit objectives. Then you're going to have to be able to execute. You're going to have to get to the point where you can execute that edge without making errors. For you to be able to execute that edge without making errors, you're going to have to learn how to trade from a carefree state of mind, meaning you're going to have to aspire to the point where you can trade without fear. And to trade without fear, you're going to have to learn how to think in probabilities. That's basically where we're going here. When I said this primary skill was learning how to trade without fear, learning how to trade without fear is a function of learning how to think in probabilities. Meaning we're going to set aside or move from thinking in a trade-by-trade mentality. In other words, what this trade is going to do for me right now, am I right or wrong on this trade? And we're going to move to a series of trades perspective, because that's what your methodology does anyway. Any trading methodology just gives you a win or loss ratio over a percentage of trades. In other words, if I take the same criteria that's in any kind of mathematical, any kind of technical formula that's mathematically based, or a technical price pattern that you would be able to see visually, what we're going to learn is that my edge, meaning a higher probability of one thing happening over another, is simply going to give me a higher win rate over a series of trades. Let's say the next 20 trades. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And that the actual, on a trade-by-trade basis, I don't know which one's going to win or which one's going to lose in advance. There is no way for me to find out. There's no way for me to determine that. That on a trade-by-trade basis, no matter what reason or rationale that you come up with, is that there is no way to assure yourself that it's going to be a winning trade. There's nothing that can tell you that. That trading methodologies give you a win percentage, let's say 70% of the next 20 trades are going to be winners. There's no way I'm going to know which of the 70, which 12 or 13 are going to be the winners, or which 6 or 7 are going to be the losers. What you're going to learn, and this is what traders, the professionals have learned, is that there's a random distribution between wins and losses over any given set of criteria that define your edge. There's a random distribution. I will get a higher percentage of wins to losses, but I just don't know which trades are going to be. It requires a complete shift in the way you think about trading. When you make this complete shift, everything about your trading will change. Now, I'm expecting you to make it now because we're still in the introduction. We won't really get into the meat of this until a little bit, but this is where we're going. Okay, that's all I want you to get. This is where we're going. You're going to genuinely learn how to think in probabilities, because when you have genuinely integrated these concepts into your mental system at a functional level, your fear will go away. You do not need to lose everything to get to the point where you can figure out that, well, I've got nothing to lose anymore, so I don't have anything to be afraid of. You don't have to do that, okay? You don't have to do that. All you have to do is commit yourself to learn how to think about trading in another way, and your fear will go away. Because what we're going to learn is the correlation between what we believe and what we feel. There's a direct correlation between, if I'm going into a situation with a certain belief that, let's say, that my particular edge is going to tell me what's going to happen on this trade right here, I wouldn't even put this trade on unless I thought it was going to win. When you really understand the nature of price movement, which is what we're going to get into after we go through this section on skills, when you really understand that, you will never think that way again. When you really understand the nature of price movement, you won't think that way again. And that is one of the biggest problems that the typical trader has. Let's say the typical screen-based trader is that they really don't understand the nature of how prices move and the underlying dynamics, because you haven't had the exposure. You haven't had the exposure to the direct markets. Your only exposure has been those blips on the screen. And as a result, there's a real gap in understanding about what's really happening. When you understand what's behind those blips, what's behind those photons that show up on your screen, when you really understand that, you will think about trading in another way, in a completely different way. It won't even occur to you to do some of the things that you're doing now. Won't even occur to you. Okay, Now, I've given you 3 so far. The next broad area that you're going to have to learn is like you can be an expert at defining an edge. You can even be able to execute your trades flawlessly, but run into the next challenge, and that's what I just call self-sabotaging beliefs. In other words, all of us have a sense of self-valuation. All of us have this sense that what we're worth as a person, you might say. And if you were to take like an old Ben Franklin accounting scale, okay, and this is positive and this is negative, meaning if you were to list every experience in your life, if you had, let's say, conscious access to every experience in your life that contributed to a positive sense of self-valuation, that yes, I am a worthy person, because what we're running into, I kind of got to get ahead of myself, what we're running into is this, is that when you learn how to define an edge and learn how to execute your trades flawlessly, what you're now exposed to is the possibilities for unlimited wealth.
Now I'm going to stop that video. And so as you're listening to Mark Douglas talking about that difference between somebody coming in and having that unlimited wealth, right? You're able to print money, okay, and having the psychological skills it takes to execute these things, right, and believing in the trade. These things really, really matter, right? Fear creates opportunity, and we got to run from that fear. We got to learn to run from that fear. So give yourself some grace, guys, okay? Give yourself some grace. Please give yourself some grace, because it takes time. Don't rush your journey. Don't rush your journey. Screen time, practicing, seeing these things unfold out, all right? That's what happened to me. When I seen my aha moment in trading, I still lost. I seen it. That's how twisted this could be. When I seen the aha moment, I still lost money. And so it is about consistency, right? Caring enough to lock in your money, staying in the game the next day, defining your entry, your exit, and your risk, right? And locking in money as the market gives it to you. Don't give it back. These are core essential things to know on your journey. Appreciate you guys watching, all right? This part of this Mark Douglas, the Discipline Files, all right? Stay tuned for more, all right? If you haven't caught the other ones, all right, part 1 to 2 and 3, okay, check that out, all right? Go back inside of I'm sorry, down in the description, all right? Check out the YouTube channel, subscribe, all right? Find it in my playlist, The Discipline Files, and you'll be able to catch up so that this will make more sense just in case you caught it this time, all right? I see you guys on the next one. You be blessed out there. And always remember to define your entry, your exit, and your risk. Trading can be possible for you, all right, if you focus on the process and not the profits, all right? See you guys next time. Peace.